Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Testing. Can you guys hear me all right? Welcome to the stream. Let me know if all the channels are up and running. We are trying to be a bit more inclusive and stream across different platforms. So this is also a test for the different platforms. So we are streaming directly to YouTube, Twitch. We are kind of like revamping that channel again, Facebook as well as LinkedIn. So let me know. Great. Thank you so much. I have the chat next to me. We have Eman on the house as well. Eman is going to be helping us moderate a little bit. So I'll run you through some of the things that we're going to be doing, but I just want to welcome everyone to the stream. I can see lots of activity, Facebook, YouTube, excellent. So all good to go. Lots of students from the Extra Mile as well, the UCG. Great. All right, so we have lots of people. Awesome. Fantastic. Alrighty, so let me just go through some of the basics of what we're going to be doing today in this workshop. It is a workshop, so it's not like the usual, you know, streams that I do sometimes with ZBrush Live and that sort of thing. This is an actual workshop, so we're going to have working time. I'm going to show you the different steps to basically create a character from scratch, from the very beginning. I'm going to use a base mesh, but I'm also going to give you some tips as well, and we're going to go through the whole process. And it's going to be a little bit more like a cooking show, as in I will skip some steps to show the result, but once I explain what you can do with those steps or how you can achieve that. Another thing, just to get it out of the way, I'm not feeling 100% because I got the flu last week, so my voice, I might lose the voice, so we might have to stop in between while I go and get some I don't know, garlic with hot water. Apparently that works. But yeah, so that's the only thing. If you're in front of the computer, it doesn't really matter where you're watching this from. If you're in front of the computer, the idea is to produce something. So feel free to take notes. And if I'm going too fast, it's okay. We're gonna try to get it somewhere. In fact, let's see if everything is good to go. I'm just gonna ask Eman to check if he's recording, and I cannot see it, but I assume it is. And we will try to share it. If not, I'm sorry, but this is the first time using Restream. We're using Restream to be able to share this with as many people as we can. Again, it's I think it's one of those things that I managed to find the time to do it, so might as well do it. And everyone that can join, yeah, it will be great. So let me just jump back to the screen where I'm going to show you what the character that we're going to be working on. So this guy right here is essentially the character that I prepare for this workshop, and it's what I would call a 3D sketch or a concept sketch, right? And it's not one of those things that you would say like, oh, he's pretending that, oh, he did this in like five minutes and it is a sketch, but it's actually polished. No, this is actually a sketch. This is what I would present as a prototype or as a sketch to a director before I commit and spend and waste my time doing something more polished, right? And I'll show you a little bit, you know, this is just a screenshot, but I'll show you in ZBrush once we change software, how polished it is, because it is very, very sketchy, but it conveys the idea. It shows what the character would look like. If there is anything that we need to do to change, maybe change the horn shapes, that's something that we can do at this very stage without wasting a lot of time. And that's one of the focus that I want to have in this, or that I want to put in this workshop. So this is kind of like the final result, but I started from this, right? So that's all I started with. So I'm going to start with something similar like this. Again, I'm going to show you the steps that I have saved the subtools in different steps, and I'll walk you through it. But it's going to be very easy. This is another kind of like yeah, I would say like a process or a system that I've developed to create these things very quickly. And I have to improve on it, right? Every time that I can, I have to improve on it, especially for, you know, the wave of AI generated art that is coming, that is fantastic, but it's a little bit scary as well. So we're going to touch on that as well. I'm going to give you my 2 cents, what I think, like the strengths that we still have as artists, especially as 3D concept artists. I think we have a bit of an edge and an advantage, even though the things that AI is producing is amazing. So hopefully that's going to put, you know, things into perspective. But with that out of the way, let's jump straight into ZBrush and start the workshop. Mention we have the chat I have the chat right next to me, but there's a lot of activity as well. But if you have any questions that are related to what I'm showing, feel free to ask them. Eman is going to choose the ones that are related to what I'm showing, and I will be able to see those, and I can hopefully answer them as I go. If it is not related to what I'm showing, feel free to put them anyway into the chat, and we'll try to answer them after as a bit of a Q&A. All right. Let's just go ahead and remove my camera from the screen. Hopefully we can actually do that without turning off the audio. Okay, cool. I don't wanna, let me just try something else. Hang on. I think we might have to leave the camera on. All right. We'll leave the camera on. And if there is something in those menus, I'll just try to show them a little bit higher. That's all right. Okay, so the step one is to start with something that we can extract things. So this very first step, or the very first step, I just call it base mesh. And the base mesh is essentially a sphere, right? Like I have in here, but I do have this base mesh here. All right. And you might think, how do you, like, I would skip a lot of steps jumping between a sphere and this base mesh. It doesn't really matter. You can actually start with something like, let's go to Tool, and just load this average male from Nick Zuccarello. You can just double click that, and it's essentially the same thing as starting with that. You can just pause it a little bit, and this is your starting point. The idea is to have something similar to what you want to end up with as the volumes, and then you can extract things and start building, the design of the character. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to show you how I did it. So I'm going to use, or I use Character Creator 4. Right? This is a software from Reallusion, and it connects directly with ZBrush. So all I have to do is select my character, like I have here. This is, I think this is a scan character, and I can click on this button to send it to ZBrush. All right? So it is very, very simple. Now, the cool thing about Character Creator is that you can morph things really quickly. So I'm going to click on Morph, this one right here, although you can also access them from this tab. But if I click on morph, I can start to give it a little bit of shape to what I want. So maybe I want like longer arms. I can just click on the biceps, just make them larger, or pull them out like that. I can make large hands. Maybe the head could be like really big. Maybe we can extend this is more stylized. This is essentially what I did with the character that I'm going to show you, right? I just got something going, something, a starting point, really, right? Maybe larger shoulders as well. We can make the shoulder blades and the torso a little bit wider. We can also get closer here. Not only you can change the body, but you can also alter the shape of the face a little bit, right? And these are just basic controllers to scale, inflate, things like that. You can also select the head and then change it based on these sliders. So there's a lot of functionality. I literally use these to get me started really quick with something that I'm aiming for. So just so that you have an idea, the character that I worked with, or that I wanted to create for this workshop, is kind of like a mix between Pan's Labyrinth or something like fantasy. What was the other reference that I had? Some kind of like Vikings, and I think Guardians of the Galaxy, something like that. All right, so let's go back to Character Creator. And once I'm happy with this, all I have to do is we have to select the character. And I'm going to click on this icon here. By the way, before we continue, this is just a very quick extra information. If you want this software, we're running a contest, an art challenge in Discord. And if you want to win one of these licenses, you can participate. It's totally free to join as well. There's going to be 3 winners, and each one of the winners of the current contest wins one full license of Character Creator 4.1 I think it is, and the ability to upgrade for free to 4.2, 4.3, whatever the case might be. So yeah, you get a full license, so you can do all that everything that I'm doing right now. You could do it as well, and you have time until the 17th of December. All right, so going back to what I was saying, selecting the character, clicking on ZBrush, and I'm gonna hit on create, and I'm gonna send the current pose, right? You can also pose them if you're already working on something that you know is gonna be in a specific way, you can send it with that current pose. But I'm gonna click on Go Z, and the plugin is gonna do the whole thing, just set up the character, and then I have the base mesh, right? So now I have it in ZBrush, it has polygroups, so if I select body, I have these polygroups. I can further enhance or further change things in ZBrush with maybe symmetry. And this is what I would do to just get me somewhere, like get started with something, right? So that it's kind of like that fear of starting with a blank canvas and you don't know how to start, and it might be a little bit intimidating. This is kind of like to jump that or like skip that step, right? So you have something to get started with. So that's, as you can see, exactly what I did. Obviously, it's slightly different, but it has the same polygroups. Everything else is the same, right? And it has this like sort of arch back pose that it's kind of like doing, I don't know, like I use some reference from the I can't remember the name. So I believe it's called the Haka. It's the I forgot the name. Anyway, it's a pose from like the Islanders, and they do like this thing at the beginning of like games and rugby, like the All Blacks. I completely went blank, but anyway, that's one of the poses. And they go like they make these really awesome faces. So I just grabbed that as a reference pose. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue with the next step. So let's say that you are happy with the base mesh, right? Or you already have something to start with, like the Nick Zuccarello one, or you have character creator and you started with this, right? So the next step is thinking about what you're going to have in your character. All right. So let's assume that I want to have, let's actually bring this as reference for you guys. And I'm using Pure Ref, just in case you are not familiar with this. It's a software that allows you to collect reference and have them on the screen and that sort of thing. So this next step is to basically find the elements that are going to create the body or the, if it is a creature, whatever it is, but in this case, like the clothing, the straps, all of that, and plan for that. All right. So let's say the obvious pieces would be like the pants, the boots, maybe those wraps around the forearm, that sort of thing, right? So what I would do is duplicate this base mesh. So in the subtool palette, I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to go into solo mode just so that you can see it. And I would do a couple of things. I would subdivide this 2 times so that when I cut the pieces that I need, I have a cleaner line, okay? And I'm going to delete lower so that I can edit that mesh. So all I have is the base mesh, right? And then I have a duplicate of the base mesh that it's a bit more subdivided, so it has more geometry. All right, so I'm going to start with, let's say, the forearm things, those wraps in there. I'm going to enable symmetry, although we can work on one side and then we can mirror it as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and isolate using this tool, the select lasso. So I'm going to hold Control and Shift and do something like that. Actually, this one has a bit more of the hand. So let's do this. But I want you to pay attention to how I create this, right? Because it is very, very quick. It doesn't have to be like super perfect. The polish comes after. Once we get the model approved, once we get the concept approved, that's when we worried about how we're gonna go into the topology and fix all these things. But for now, all we want to create is something so that we can sculpt on top of it, and it's not necessarily the body. And this is, to me, and in my opinion, this is the fastest way of doing it and the simplest way as well, so that it sort of wraps and follows the body. All right. Okay, so we have these bits ready, but obviously this is still part of the body. So what I'm going to do is bring in a custom palette, which is this one right here, and I'm going to show you what this is, don't worry. And I'm just going to click on Split Hidden. So for you, that would be under the subtool palette, click on Split Hidden. Okay, so now I have this piece separate from the body and from that other selection. Let's go back to the body, and you see this bit is gone. The next thing, let's say the pants, right? We'll do the pants, Control Shift. So I'm just focusing on creating the pieces that I need to sculpt on that are going to be separate to the body. Okay. So the same thing, I'm going to split hidden, same idea. Now we have these beads. Maybe we can do, let's do the boots as well. So for the boots, I'm going to separate. I'm going to take these ones without the foot, split hidden. And these ones, I think we can split those entire pieces, split hidden. And let's see how we're going. This one, maybe from here we can extract a couple of things. Let's remove the symmetry. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to maybe not that way. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about like making like, perfect cuts or really worrying too much about topology. This is not going to be the case right now. So let's invert that. Let's split. Actually, let's include this bit. Split hidden. Right? And then we have this bit as well. Might as well just take something like that for the shoulder pad. Again, I'm doing this a little bit faster than usual, but that will give you the idea. Split hidden. And this bit, I don't really need anything from it, so I'm just going to delete that. But because I duplicated, at any point, if I need to do the same thing for a different piece or just come back or there's some changes, I'm just going to use the base mesh, duplicate it, subdivide it, and then cut it up into pieces. So I'm going to go into solo mode quickly just to go through the list of what I split, basically. So we have this for the forearms. We have this bit for the pants, the boots, the actual, the shoes, the shoulder pad, and the strap here. Okay, the shoulder pad actually needed to be on the other side. So I'm just going to select it and I'm going to click on flip, on mirror. So that's going to be on this side. And that's about it. That's all I want you guys to do. Like if you're following along to do for this step, just have the base mesh, cut it up into the pieces that you need. So you have your base mesh and then you have a bunch of subtools, as many as you need. Don't worry about topology. Don't worry about anything. Just something to get you started with. And that's going to be the basis of what we're going to be creating. And, spend more time polishing and, refining it. But I'm going to give you a bunch of techniques for that as well. So I'm going to leave you, I'm going to let you do that while I bring in the next step, which are the pieces. Essentially, this would be, just as a quick recap, just having the base mesh, just this. This is the base, but then I have another step, which are the pieces. So these are the actual pieces. So you see, I actually tweak the face slightly. Very, very basic as well. Just, more pointy ears. I gave it slightly more of a stronger complexion to this guy, but that's about it. I didn't even worry about the legs. I'm just gonna hide him. So this guy skipped leg day in the gym, but it doesn't matter. But you'll see if I go through it, it's exactly what I just showed you, right? So I have the strap, I have the shoulder pad, I have these forearms. Oh, this one is this bit here. It's kind of like a protection, like a leather protection for the abdominals. The pants, I have these for the boots, and I have these for the shoes, so the actual sole of the boots, and that's it, right? So I'm gonna let you do that if you're following along. I'm gonna take a quick break just to get some water, and then I'll get you into the next step. But again, I want you to also, if you're following along, hopefully to get something out of this workshop, right? And again, I'm gonna try to cover as much techniques, as much tips as possible. And so when I come back, just prepare some questions. I'm gonna grab some water. When I come back, I will answer some of the questions for this very specific stage, and then we continue with the next one. All right. Alrighty. All right. Cool. Um, all good. So hopefully you've done that part already. Let me just see if there's any questions that I can answer about this process so far. Is this concepting phase, would you be doing the whole figure from all angles or mostly just from the front? That's a great question, and that is something that I would answer as well a little bit later. But yes, the short answer is yes. This is the concepting stage, so you can basically look at him from any angle. Ideally, you would pose them at the end. But if it's not going to be showing from every, like, let's say, the back of this guy, I might not concentrate on the back as much because again, it is just a concept. Unless it's a very important part of the character. Maybe if it's a third person shooter or third person game where you can see the back of the character constantly, that might be more important than the actual front. But in this case, it's just to get that right. Obviously, once it's approved, and if it is for a game or a cinematic or something, then I will definitely go through the entire process. But for this stage, yeah, it's just concepting. Let's see another question. Does the base mesh coming from character creator has UVs as well? So it had good topology and polygroups. Yeah, absolutely. The only issue that I see with those UVs from character creator, it's not an issue, but for this concepting doesn't really matter because I'm gonna destroy the topology anyway, or change it quite a bit. But I'll show you. So in character creator, there are actually UDIMs. So if I select body, well, this is these are all the pieces. So if I select the head has this texture, right? And that's just the UDIM for that texture and neck. And that's equivalent to basically seeing this, right? So this red polygroup, that is just the head. So that's one UDIM. Then you have the arms, the body or the torso, the legs, and I think the nails also are separate as well in a different UDIM, plus the teeth, the eyes, and that sort of thing. Any other question? Do you prefer this or masking and extract, and why? I do prefer it this way, and I'll show you why in a second. Because with the mask and extract, you either have to have thickness already, or if you don't, you have to clean it up as well, like quite a bit. So you could do that, and I definitely do that. But this is one of the things that I wanted to sort of like focus on, right? If I use the extract or the masking and extract, that would be something that's going to be on top of the body already, right? And that's great. You could definitely do the same thing. There's multiple ways of doing the same thing. The advantage of doing it this way is that you can start building the volume from almost the same, the coplanar pieces with the body. But, for example, let's say this one, the shoulder pad, you can extract that as well. And then you can extract from this piece another piece, right? So I would definitely use it. In fact, I use it all the time. I would do something like this. I have it in my UI as well. So I can cut and a clean cut like this. Clean mask edge split. So I will just go through the process, create a nice clean cut and split it. And it's like a macro that I created. So I do use it quite a bit. All right. Oh, let's move on to the next step. So what I would do after I have the pieces that I know that I'm going to use that are going to be more significant to the actual silhouette, I move on to the volumes. And the volumes is essentially that, just giving volume to those pieces. So let me bring in what I have just to show you an example, and then I'll show you. So this is the block, or it's not even the blocking, it's just adding volume. Like I haven't started blocking things out properly. It's just adding volume. So I took every single piece, right? And I created additional pieces just to get those things going. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Don't worry. I just want to show you what the aim of this next step is, right? So far I've shown you with this one 3 steps, right? The base, just get something going, whatever it is. If it is a unicorn, have the base of the unicorn. Then the second step is cutting out in pieces to understand where are the subtools that you can manipulate and work with separate from the body. And this third part is volumes. It's just adding volume to what you had. Okay. And there are a couple of things that we can do about it, right? So I'm going to jump back in here so that I can show you. So let's take this guy. is going to be the shoulder pad. And we're going to clean that up quickly to create the base mesh. Because it is a single-sided mesh, I'm going to turn on polyframe. I'm going to call Control and W to assign a single polygroup. And I'm going to bring in, actually, we can do it from the deformation palette. I do have it in my custom UI, but I'll do it here for you guys. So deformation palette, I'm going to go to polish by groups, and you'll see what happens around the edges, right? It just cleans up those edges really nicely, and it maintains the shape, right? And I can run this a couple of times just to clean it up, and you see it sort of tries to even out the topology a little bit. All right, that's all I want for this first, let's say, first step of the third step, or first polishing step of the third step, right? And I have my series measure here, which for you guys would be geometry series measure. There we go. And I'm gonna select a target count, and I'm gonna aim for something low. So let's go for 2, and this number in the series measure is in the thousands. So I'm gonna click on series measure. So it's gonna aim to create 2,000 polygons for this piece. And that's still a little bit too much. So all I'm gonna do is click on half, and now ZBrush is gonna aim for half of that. So series measure half, maybe half of that, and that's pretty good, right? Let's go ahead and polish again by groups, just to clean it up a little bit. And you'll see it just changes things quite a bit. So I'm gonna move this out of the way so that you can see more, you have more real estate to play with. Look what happened from the very beginning. So I'm gonna go back in time. So this is the rubbish piece of geometry that we extracted. Again, it's just something to get you started. This doesn't have to be perfect. I want to be very, very clear about this, because one of the main things that I see my students getting hung up on is like they want to have everything perfect from the beginning. And that's not the case for concept art, right? Or it could be at the end when you present it, but not when you're working. You want to be fast. You want to be producing things fast that are of quality. So getting you there to that point, you just need to find, like, I wouldn't say shortcut, but improvements on your workflow that get you to that point faster. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward, and you'll see the polishing of this is rather quickly. You know, it's a simple thing. Just as a recap, because I'm gonna do this with all of them or most of the pieces, just so you know, is polish by group so that you can clean the edge. Then I'm going to polish a little bit more just to clean everything, remeshing until you get something like this, something decent, and polish again. And now we have something very clean. All right. This thing is still very close to the body, right? So in this case, what we can do as well is use the geometry, the subdivide or dynamic subdivision, right? So I'm going to click on dynamic subdiv. That doesn't do anything other than just, adding a bit of subdivision, but we can add thickness. So I'm going to push this out a bit. And this is going to determine the thickness of that sort of armor plate, or that shoulder plate. And if it is still too close to the body, what we can do is inflate the whole thing. And because we have now a cleaner set of polygons, it's going to push it towards the normal. So it's going to inflate the whole thing. So pay attention to what's going to happen when I go to deformation, and I'm going to inflate like so. That's going to be really cool, which is something that you can still do if you use the extract and mask process, but I think this one works well. And all right, so if this is too sharp for you, maybe the edge of this, what you can do is click on this post subdivide, and that just remove the sharpness basically, and then we can add maybe a couple of segments, and those segments are going to be added in the edge. So let's add a couple of segments, and that sharpens things a bit more. And as you can see, this is a lot cleaner. This is still a very basic volume. This is not even the blockout, it's just volume. The blockout comes next, but we have volumes. We can already see a slight difference in the silhouette. So, things are getting, it's more exciting. So let's go ahead and jump to the next one, just to repeat the process a couple more times so that you can follow. And I'll show you a couple more. So let's do the strap in here. Again, I'm going to do it a little bit faster now that you know the steps. I'm just going to go ahead and polish by groups. I have it here in my UI called polish by groups. And that should be enough. And I'm going to set a target polygon count of 1.5, right? Half, just like I get something going. Polish by groups so I can clean those lines. Polish by groups, and have, maybe another polish by groups. So it's a lot of polish by groups or polish even, and then zero measure. Let's do one more. That looks pretty clean. It doesn't matter if this looks like this. This is another important thing. This zero measure process doesn't mean that you're trying to get the base mesh to work on something later. It doesn't mean that you have to focus on creating a perfect topology at this point so that you can keep working. I would destroy this anyway. I might add subdivisions. I might dynamesh the whole thing. It doesn't matter. This is very important. The zero measure is just another tool like dynamesh, like polygroups or panel loops. Anything that you can use to get you to that point is valid. So zero measure is just another sketching tool. I might zero measure again at the end, and so on and so forth. I'm not even worried about what the topology might look like until I get to a point where I need to start adding details. So this zero measure is just another sketching tool, all right? But this one seems all right to me. Let's go ahead and do the dynamic. I also have it here, and you might start realizing why I keep all these tools in my UI, just so that it's easy to access them. I'm going to actually smooth this, add a couple of segments. So these tools that I have here in the dynamic are essentially what I just showed you before. I'm going to inflate this, push it out of the body, and it's way too thick. But this is the great thing about the dynamic, about this process, right? If you use the extract, you are kind of like married to the thickness in a way, even though you can change it. All right, and you see there is like some interaction or some intersection here. Don't even worry about that. This is another step. We are just getting the volumes. Just focus on creating volumes for what you already have. We will fix that in a bit. All right, so for the arms, right, we have this bit. I'm going to show you a different technique. So I could do exactly the same thing, right? But in this case, I want to show you something else for this and the pants. Just because it is easier, I'm going to just dynamesh it. So I'm going to click on dynamesh. Maybe that's too small, too low resolution. Let's go to geometry, dynamesh. This is part of the thing of why I have it in my UI here, because I sometimes forget where they are. All right, I'm going to increase the resolution a bit to 256 or let's do 256. All right, and let's dynamesh that. And I'm also going to delete one side because it's going to be easy to work on one side unless I'm doing something asymmetrical, but in this case, it's easier. So deactivate symmetry. I want to hide this bit and delete hidden. For you guys, the delete hidden is under the modify topology. Click delete hidden. That's it. And now we have this dynamesh. I'm going to go ahead and give it a single polygroup, Control W. There we go. And I think that's about it. Let's bring in the rest. And I'm going to inflate the whole thing. There we go. Maybe just add a little bit more resolution. All right, something like that. So at this point, we have something like a bit of volume that we can start adjusting, but I'm not going to do that just now. Again, adjusting anything, you might be tempted to just go with the move brush and start like adjusting things like that and, adding more volume and whatnot, right? That's not this step. You can totally do it. I'm just going to give you my steps on why I think if you focus on stages, you end up being a little bit faster because you know what your target of that stage is. And that's, I think, very important in the process. But feel free to use whatever works for you. So point being is, that's all I want. I just want to give it volume, move on to the next one. All right? Getting a little bit of the cough back, so hopefully it's not going to interrupt the stream too much. All right, let's do the same thing with the pants. I'm going to dynamesh it. A bit more resolution would be good. Inflate. I'm going to give it a single polygroup, and I'm going to also use the polish. The polish is exactly in the same place as the other ones, or the other deformers. Just polishing a little bit. All right, I have the pants. Done. So this is the process that, as you can see, is exactly the same thing. I'll follow the same process. One is using zero measure and dynamic subdivision, but again, it's just a sketching tool, and the other one is just using dynamesh, right? But that should give you something like this, all right? And you'll see this one doesn't have, I'm gonna enable it. Must have turned it off beforehand. There we go. So it's exactly the same thing. So just the strap and the shoulder pad, they look cleaner just because they have dynamic subdivision and a cleaner topology, as you can see. I'm going to show you how I did this other one, this extra one. Just, again, you can do it in many different ways. And then I'm going to show you how I did these ones right here. Or like this, yeah, anything that is kind of like, I would say like, like a skirt or something like that. Anything like that. But I just want to point your attention to the different pieces that I created, right? So a Dynamesh bead, this is another one, sorry. This one is another Dynamesh bead. This is another Dynamesh, and this is another Dynamesh that I extracted as well from the sole of the foot. So very, very simple. Once you get the hang of it, it's all you want to concentrate on is setting up the volumes, nothing else. Don't worry about anything else. All right, so let me just show you how I did the other one. I'm going to select the shoulder, and it is as simple as duplicating it, right? Let's bring in the gizmo, center it to the unmasked areas. I'm going to move it slightly, maybe scale it a bit in the Z-axis. So, and I'm going to turn off dynamic so I can see what I have. And then I'm going to use this slice curve. So the slice curve, you can access it by holding Control and Shift. And these are all your tools living in the Control and Shift. So I'm going to use that. And I'm just going to cut it like this. Oh, by the way, if I hold Control and Shift, it's going to give me this very straight line. But if I want to add a curve, all I have to do is set my point where I want to start the curve and then tap once Alt, like so. Let's do it like this. And then go into solo mode. And now we have two different polygroups, which again, I'm going to select the blue one and delete hidden in the modified topology like I show you. And then I'm just going to polish by groups again. And then I'm going to hit select a target count of let's go for 1. And let's go ahead and click on zero measure. There we go. Let's do polish by groups again. Let's go half, half, and enable dynamic. And there we go. That's it. Pretty easy, right? Following exactly the same steps, just slightly different. You can already use something that you extracted or you generated in the way that I'm showing you. But as a quick recap to this step of the volume step, the third step is just doing that. Just focus on whatever you extracted or cut it up, add volume so that you can see it in the silhouette a little bit. Don't worry about adjusting anything. All right. So this is just adding volumes. And we have two techniques, very simple. One is the polish by groups, then zero measure, and then add thickness with dynamic subdivision. And the other one is just dynameshing and inflating things. That's it. All right. So while anyone that is following along continues with this, I'm happy to answer some questions. So, Eman, if you want to throw some questions my way, if there are any, I'll be happy to answer those. Can you show me how to apply the texture to the belt tutorial that you shared? I still don't understand how to implement it. Johnny, that is, I think we might not have, there might not be a scope for that in this workshop, just because I want to show the entire process. But at the end, if I have time, I'll show you. It's relatively easy. All you need is UVs. Having UVs, creating texture that matches those UVs in a black and white image, bring it into ZBrush, and then use that to project those details. I might do a tutorial in the future, like in the near future, on how to do that, but we might not have time for that today, but I'll try. All right, getting the curve at this stage. Should we be concerned about the poly count for each tool? Nah, don't worry about it. You can have about 8 million polygons per each subtool. That's the great thing about the subtool. You can have as many as you want. So don't be worried about, I will show you at the end my final tool has about 30 or 40 million polygons because again, it's just a sketch. There's no need to optimize anything for anything at this point. All right. How far should you take the proportions before you cut up the mesh? Good question, Chris. That's a good question. I would say block out the silhouette, right? That's what you wanna have, right? Have something. It's a good question. So I'm just gonna try to answer the best way I can. I do this as I go, right? And what I mean by that is that even at this stage that I already have things that are sort of like attached to the body, I can very quickly and I'm going to show you very quickly. I can use the C plugin. Hopefully this answers the question. I'm going to use the transpose master, go to T-pose mesh. This is going to combine everything into one single mesh, like so. And if I need to do some adjustments to the body like that, I can still do it in a single tool, right? So if I need, let's say, the head is a little bit too small, right? I can do this, scale that up, right? And then I go back to C plugin, T-pose to C sub, and then adjust those things. So you can adjust things as I go. This is what I kind of like struggle at the beginning of how I answered that question, because I do think it's very important to get the silhouette and the proportions right if you have an idea where you're going. But if you are designing as you go, if you're concepting in 3D, this is how I treat it. I have the base, but then I think, you know what, the head needs to be smaller, or this now it's more of a cartoonish character, so this is what I want to go for. I can do that as I go, and that's why I don't even worry about changing the topology, because I might do a very, very large change. Maybe I have like giant arms or giant hands that are going to distort the topology, so I can just do it without worrying about, I have to redo or retopologize anything. At this point, retopology and UVs and that more technical stuff is not nowhere near my head at this point. I just want to focus on the design and conveying the idea, and have make sure that whatever I do has intentionality and that sort of thing. All right. Okay. One more question, maybe. There are any? Yep. The other shoulder pad that is made of leather, is that the same process? I assume you are referring to this, like the cover of the arm. This is a slightly different process. I mean, it's the same process as the, let's say, the forearm. Like, it's a Dynamesh process, but then I cleaned it up as well. So we're gonna get to that in a bit, because this is one of the things that I didn't plan for. But then I thought, it looks a little bit, too exposed, this arm, so let's cover it with something. So as I go, I made design changes or design choices. Okay, so hopefully this gives you an idea. This is still very much far from what we end up with. So let's go to step 4. And we're going to take a break in about 15, 20 minutes, so that everyone gets at least the blocking stage, right? Because the rest becomes more repetitive once we start polishing, and I'm going to show you the techniques. So let's go ahead and open up the block. All right. So this stage is what I would call the blocking stage. In fact, let's go ahead and remove all of these, and I'm going to do a comparison side by side. So drop one in there and here. This should be all right. All right. So on the left hand side, we have the step that I just showed you, which is the volumes. And on the right hand side, I have the blockout. So the blockout, or this next stage, should already give you a much better understanding of the, let's say, the materials and the type of objects that your character is going to have, even though I don't have all the objects, right? You'll see it is missing quite a bit of things and details that, you can kind of tell what this is. In fact, I think this one might have already, no, not yet. This is the next one. So with this stage, all I want you to do is focus on adjusting things like this. You see there is a little bit of intersection in here. This is not very well defined. The boots are probably generating some compression faults, and I'll show you about the compression faults in just a second. But that's essentially it, right? It's basically getting these volumes into a blocking stage so you understand what it is. Because right now, it's not very clear. In the previous one, it's not very clear what all the pieces are. Whereas in this one, you can already tell, like, okay, this one is going to be some fabric. This one is still pretty clean, so it's probably something solid, and that sort of thing. So the tools for this step are going to be the move topological, and I like to enable in the brush palette, I like to enable the AccuCurve, right? And the AccuCurve just gives you a much better, not much better, but like a sharper point, that sort of thing. Okay, so I would just spend time doing this sort of thing, selecting the tool, adjusting it, pulling it, so that there is no not weird intersections, right? So this might take a little bit of time just to adjust everything. But at this point, and this is what I want to show you, the next kind of like technique. Actually, I forgot to show you this one, so I'll show you that as well. But the next technique is taking something like this, right? Do a quick zero measure, and you can add details as well. So this one already has subdivision levels. Right? So I did, based on the Dynamesh, I did a quick zero measure. Again, it's not great, but it does the job. And then I added subdivisions so that you can add these wrinkles. The same thing for the hands. And it's not great. The topology is not even following the main folds, but it does the job. It shows that the concepts, and that's another important thing that I want to focus on. All right, so let me show you how that is done. Maybe let's use the other guy in here as an example. So what I'll do with this is adjust things as far as I need to. So this is part of the blocking. Before you do anything else, just adjust maybe some kind of like wrap here. All right. This one doesn't need too many tweaks, but you can spend more time definitely in this in this stage. And if you want, you can increase the resolution as well. Dynamesh, if you want to give it a bit more shape, maybe we can use. I'm gonna use this brush right here. And this is from the Geiger and Beksinski pack. By the way, I'm going to show you this and a couple of other brushes. If you're interested in any of the brushes pack, you can go to the ZBrush Guides store. Eman is going to show a link in just a second. Thanks, Eman. So these ones are brushes that I created myself, like some custom brushes. If you go to the ZBrush Guides.store, you can just get them from there, different packs. So this particular one is from the Geiger and Beksinski pack. And they're just things to, again, to speed up the workflow, to improve on processes. So this is the pack. I'm using this one right here. It's a standard strong. So if you don't have it, you don't have to have, or you don't have to buy them. You can just take the standard brush, do it with the standard brush. You can take the standard brush, increase the intensity a little bit, and that's very, very similar to what I have. Right? I think the one that I was using also has more of a lacy radius. I can't remember, just to give you more control. All right, so let's assume that this is already kind of what I want. What I can do is now run a zero measure. So I'm going to aim for half, just because I'm keeping an eye on how many points I have. So the active points, this one right here, if you're using the standard UI, you should see the active points somewhere here at the top. In my UI, it's here. Another, I'm branching out very quickly. If you want my current UI, by the way, there is a tutorial in my YouTube channel about customizing the UI, where you can learn how to customize your UI with a purpose, and you can also download my UI. But I'm keeping an eye on this poly count. So 11,000, I'm gonna aim for half of that. So zero measure, that should be okay. As you can see, pretty simple. You can go lower than this, but again, there's no need, because we're not trying to optimize anything. We just want to do, we're going to use the zero measure as a sketching tool to have something cleaner. Once we're done with this, what I'm going to do is subdivide this a few times. So now we have 300,000 polygons. You can have, like I said, 8 millions in just this bit. Let's go into solo mode, right? And I'm going to bring in another brush. Again, you can do what I'm going to show you. You can do it with the damp standard brush and the standard brush and the move brush, all of that, and the smooth brush. In fact, let me just show you. I'm going to select the damp standard brush, so BDS. And I'm going to press and then hold the Alt key. So just to create those cuts, right? Very cool. Obviously, try to make sure that they make sense. So I wouldn't create compression faults like this in this fashion. I will have a look at what's actually creating that compression fault. So something like this, right? Maybe here is not as strong, depending on the material as well. Maybe some coming out like this, right? And that's why it's really good to use references at this point. Even though you're designing new things and making things up, it's really good to have references. Okay, so I'm going to show you the brush. So this is another brush that you can find in the ZBrush Guide store. It's called the Cloth and Drapery. So I'm going to use this one called the compression folds. Again, it's just to speed up the workflow. You'll see why it is a lot faster. I'm just going to go like this. And I'm also using the smooth brush. And again, I would definitely use some references to check this and make sure that these wraps are, more believable. But at this point, when I'm trying to convince you of something that I want to create, in this case, like a wrap, I think this does the job. So it takes less than 30 seconds, right? And we already have some idea of what this could be. It might not be great. It might not look perfect. It might not make much sense right now, especially because I did it very quickly. I might spend a little bit more time, but you get the idea, right? And if it works, if this is approved, it's like, okay, let's go ahead and concentrate on how we can improve this. And everything is very sketchy, so you can go back and polish it again. And that's kind of like one of the key elements of this process, that is just to get the idea out and make sure that it's readable, that people understand what this is. Maybe your art director understand this is clearly a piece of fabric, right? And the same thing for the pants. If you want, just to give you an alternative to this method, I'm going to increase the resolution a bit. Dynamesh, maybe polish things. Like so, and do the same thing, but in a Dynamesh object. So this is still Dynamesh. I'm using just one brush, just to keep it simple, but there are like a bunch of brushes for all sorts of wrinkles, right? All right, that's it. And then once we have the Dynamesh, I'm going to do the serum measure with a target polygon count of 2000. Serum mesh that. I might have to come back and redefine some of the folds, but there we go. So at least we have now a topology roughly that follows those lines. So again, we can subdivide these. Oops. Right, and then just play around a little bit more with that, or we can just go to the standard brush, right, and then manually add more volume to certain areas. But again, this just becomes the usual sculpting things, right? So that's what I wanted to show. It is a very simple process, as long as you know where you're going, or kind of like what you're trying to achieve, it should be pretty easy. And if you have lots of references, it should make it a lot easier. All right, so we have a few more minutes. Let's go ahead before the break. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to show you how I did this. This is another very, very simple thing. A slightly different technique. So I'm going to turn all of them off. There we go. So that I can create one from scratch. So what I did was I'm going to append a plane. And let's go ahead and put that in front. Yeah, something like that should be okay. I'm going to play a little bit with the dynamics. Again, nothing too complex. There's not a lot of geometry in this one. So let's put dynamics on the left-hand side. There we go. And I'm going to also bring in the gizmo for the cloth gizmo, basically. So from the brush palette, here we go, transpose cloth. So this is going to be a gizmo that has that is going to affect whatever you have selected with the current tools or with the current settings of the dynamics. So I'm just going to push this. Nothing's going to happen, but you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to push this like so, and nothing is happening because I haven't told ZBrush that I want to include everything that is visible as a collision volume. So all I have to do is click on collision volume, and that's it. Now I can start pushing this towards the guy, and you'll see it just creates that nice sort of wrap, right? Obviously, this is not great just yet. So what I can do as well is mask a section. Let's switch to the mask tool. So I'm going to mask this area, and now I'm going to Maybe the firmness is fine. I'm going to increase the iterations a little bit and reduce the strength of the gravity so that it's not too crazy. And the masking, all it does is just pinning that section so that it just falls down. So click on Run Simulation, and there we go. That's much better. Clear the mask, right? And that's it. Obviously, in the concept, it has this sort of shape, and it's a little bit thicker. So you can change when you're running the simulation. You can change the firmness of it. Let me duplicate it so you can see the difference and undo that. And I'm gonna do firmness of 4, so more like a leather piece. Run simulation, and that's it. So you'll see between one and the other, right? The one that has a firmness of 4 has more structure, so the folds are a little bit thicker, whereas this one is more like, I would say, cotton or something like that. So think about that as well. Like if you can identify the materials at this stage that you're using, great. Anyway, so for the different patterns, so that sort of corner, I do the same thing, right? So these might look like, okay, this is a really nice topology already, but I'm not thinking about that again. So I'm going to use the slice curve. I'm going to slice it like that, maybe turn on polyframe, and then like that, right? And then I'm going to also mirror and well so that we have the same sort of line on the other side, right? So you have these things. That's kind of like what I did for this section. And then isolate everything, delete hidden. And now, if you want, you can run a zero measure just to clean it up. I wouldn't. This one works just fine. But if you want to clean it up a little bit more, you can use the zero measure. And I would suggest using these detect edges, just so that it detects the edges and try to keep things crisp, right? Maybe with symmetry as well. And then I'm going to polish by, instead of polish by groups, you can polish by features or polish by crisp edge, right? But this one, again, doesn't really matter. I think I was happy with this version, actually, so we don't have triangles. Let's keep that one. I think that one is fine. All right, so with this one, I will enable dynamic subdivision just to have some thickness. There we go. And maybe switch to the normal gizmo now. Bring them closer to the body a little bit. And use the move brush with the Aki curve as well, just pushing things in so that we can concentrate on keeping things working nicely. You see, it's nothing too complicated. Once you have a lot of pieces and lots of layers and adding all those little subtools, it starts to become a lot more complex, right? All right, so hopefully this gives you some ideas. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break just to get some more water, and we're gonna come back where I'm gonna actually show you how we go to this stage, right? Because the next stage is very good, it's very cool as well, which is the refinements. Let me just load it up so you can see it. So there we go. So this is the refinements of the blocking stage. Again, very blocky at this stage, but now we have incorporated polypane so that we can start defining things and have a clear contrast between the different objects, right? So I'm gonna come back to this, show you some other techniques in there after the break, and then we can start talking a bit about the AI tools, how I'm using it, and why I think we still have a little bit of an edge, advantage more than anything towards creating content than AI, even though I think it's going to take over. All right, so let's take a 10-minute break, and I'll see you in 10 minutes. All right, I'm back. How you guys doing? Maybe before we start with this next part, which is really fun, I could answer a couple of questions. Eman, if there are a couple, just throw them my way. New to ZBrush, I have a question. Want to know how important free memory is on top of Windows. I was using Sculptris Pro and a memory dropped to 11 gigabytes and got 1 free gigabytes. It is important to have enough memory, and the processor is really good. It's really important for ZBrush. I'm not like super technical when it comes to like the specs of the computer. I do have a link to the current kit that I use, the current rig. If you want to use that as reference, I have no problem with any of that. As in, I don't really worry about the the memory because I've never had any issue with it. So there is a link if you go to the YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel. There is, in most videos at the bottom of the description, there's a link to the current rig that I use. So that that might be something you can use as reference. Any other question, guys? Are your wrinkles and fold brushes still available? Yeah, just go to the ZBrushGuides.store. Again, Eman might show a link to that, and then you can just go there and get all of them. All of my brushes that I use on my projects are in there, and that's really how I come up with brushes. If I need them for a specific project, I build them, and then if I think they're useful for anyone else, I spend some more time refining them and packing them all up into a pack, and then just put it online. That's the easy answer. All right, one more question, guys. Would you use the compression fold brush with C-sub, or does it look unnatural? With C-sub, okay. So inverting it, yeah, you can use. In fact, some of the brushes are already using that inverted version, so you can use it. The one that I use, the compression ones, might not be ideal for that, but some of them work actually with the C sub. But that's the beauty of it. You can just start that, like you can start with that pack, and then you can refine it to your needs, right? If you find that it's better to use that with C sub, and it does, it looks great and it looks gives you better results, then you can just save that as a new brush and in your library, and that's it. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Let's go ahead and continue. Okay, there's one more question. Let's do this last one. Is there a way to put ZBrush character into Character Creator and rig it? I thought you made a video. Yeah, actually, there is a way. I'm actually working on a new video tutorial for that. Hopefully, it's going to be ready soon. What I'm going to show you how you can start with like completely, Dynamish, just Sculptris Pro or a C-Sphere armature in ZBrush, everything in ZBrush. Like, let's assume that this doesn't have the base of Character Creator. Send it to Character Creator and rig it in there. So you can totally do that. And it's called AccuRig. Right now, there is a free tool called the AccuRig. I'll try to find it, or maybe maybe Eman can share it later on in the chat. It's called AccuRig. It's a free tool to rig your character. You can download it. And you can export the rig to Blender or to Unity, things like that. And that is actually available now, and it's free. The one that I prefer using, in my workflow, is to send it to ZBrush, from ZBrush to Character Creator, because it communicates very well with it, and then rig it in there. And it's a little bit more advanced than the free version, but yeah, we'll talk about that later. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the blocking refining. So the clear difference between the previous step and this step is that you can see now I have a few more details. So I have this this piece here in the center. I have these wraps around the belt, like the buckle maybe. I have the colors, obviously, the polypaint. I have these additional pieces on top that are new. And I kind of like defined some panels. Let me turn off polypaint. There we go. Some panels in here, but you'll see it's just extremely blocky and sketchy. So that's what I started to define. These ones as well, I'm going to show you a couple of things that you can do to get these things going really quick, as well as the necklaces, right? But the main thing is that this is still the blocking. It's not that far from what we had before. Let's do a screenshot here. And let's open that one up. yeah, as you can see, it's not that far. Obviously, this is not the actual one, but it's not that far from what we had before. But it's a lot more polished, right? In terms of you have at least some cut lines. You indicate where the seams of the clothing are, that sort of thing. So this is what I would call the blocking refinements. It's still very blocky, still using the geometry that we generated, but it's better defined. This one right here, the shoulder pad, I'm just want to show you. I'm going to select this one. So this one right here, as you can see, already has subdivision, right? So I have this piece that has thickness and already has subdivision. Where I went with the clay brush, and I'll do a couple more just so you can see. With the clay brush, I press the Alt key and then start doing this. Or even just with you can click on C sub and start doing this. Right? And those are essentially the damages of the edge and all of that. But if I go back to the previous one, the way that I did that was enabling dynamic, got the edge that I want or the thickness, the sharpness that I want, click on apply, maybe divide it one more time. So now we have subdivision levels in a relatively clean base mesh that is not the final topology. Like I'm gonna keep repeating myself. Like if I need to, I can retopologize this after. This is not something that I'm gonna worry about. All right, and then you can just start, in damage to it. If it is too pixelated, as in you don't have enough resolution, don't worry about it. Just add another level of subdivision. Now I have 100,000 points. Maybe it's not enough. Another, doesn't matter. It's a single subtool. It doesn't matter at all. We're not worried about how we can optimize this. We just want to show the concept. So that's how I refine that. And this is the step, basically. Having the blockout, you have the blockout ready. So now it's about polishing that blockout, adjusting maybe this corner right here. I want it to be sharper for whatever reason. That's the type of tweaks that I want to do in this stage. And I also started, paying more attention to the anatomy. Oh, I had this in here. I'll show you what this means. This is for, I think it was Chris, can't remember, who asked about the extract. I'll show you that with this piece. Yeah, so I started worrying a bit more about the anatomy, just to very quickly block out some of the muscle groups, and that's it, right? So let's do this centerpiece, right? And this is another technique, which is the extract. So I'm gonna select the body. Again, you can use the same technique I showed you at the beginning of cutting out pieces, duplicating the body, cutting out pieces, and do the zero measure. But in this case, I'm just going to take the body, mask this area, right? So this is just the normal masking. If you want a cleaner edge for the mask, you need to have more resolution. But again, it doesn't really matter for what I'm going to show you. And go to the extract palette here. And in here, you can determine a couple of things. If you want it to be double-sided, hang on, I dropped my my pen. It has to be double-sided, or no, it doesn't have to. So you can click on this if you want this to be double-sided or not. I'm gonna make it double and the thickness, and you can click on extract. And you won't see much because I have other pieces in there, but maybe from here, let's do extract. Maybe from here, actually. There we go. So you see this thickness that is created here, that is from the extract. So if I'm happy with that thickness, I'm going to click on accept, right? And now we have this other piece that is just extract a piece from the body, right? And that's what I did for that, just as a different technique, really. But it could be done in any other way. So I'm going to clear the mask now, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. So polish by groups, more. And we have this nice set of polygroups, right? That we can also use and leverage to create. I'm going to smooth this out as well. But yeah, we have these polygroups that we can leverage to essentially retopologize these with keeping those edges. So all I have to do for that is go to the Zero Measure tab, click on Keep Groups. You can remove the smooth groups. That's just going to do the same thing that I've been doing manually, which you don't need. So we can remove that to 0, keep groups, and maybe go for half, Zero Measure, and Zero Measure, maybe polish by groups again. All right. So I think this one works fine. Um, the only thing with this technique is that the thickness, like I said, is kind of like baked in a way. So what I would prefer to do actually is to hold Control and Shift to select my select lasso or select rectangular, isolate the front of this piece and delete the rest. So now I delete hidden, and now I have this floating piece, and I can use the inflate to deflate it or push it closer to the body, just a tiny bit, right? So deflating or using the inflate slider in the negative values, what it does is going to take, based on the normals of the polygons, is going to shrink the whole thing or is going to inflate it. So I just pushed it closer to the body, and now I can use the dynamic subdivision. Again, sorry. So with dynamic, I can add thickness like so. All right. Yeah, cool. So this is basically the same way or the technique that I used to create this piece here in the center. And as you can see, it's nothing more than that. And of course, now that I have this, I can start adding a little bit of a pattern. But look at the pattern. This is what I meant. It's just to give you an idea. It's not, it's by no means perfect, right? But when you look at it from this distance and from this concept, this one is a slightly more refined, but it's based on the same thing. It's very, very sketchy. So let me just show you how I did that. So I'm gonna apply this and add a bit more subdivision. So I have 46,000. 46,000. Let's see. Yeah, this is plenty. So I'm gonna use another brush from the Geiger pack. This is the HR Geiger Cotta, which is a little bit sharper than the rest. And I'm also in the brush palette. I'm gonna go to the auto masking here, and I'm gonna enable back face masking. All right. I'm gonna grab some water. It's coming back, the cough. Sorry about this, guys. My voice is still. I still have voice, so I'm gonna push through until I have no voice. But yeah, so enabling back face masking, what it does is allows you to play around with this without affecting the back, especially when you have thin areas. So just manually, let's go ahead and kind of like define this border here, right? And then, maybe a pattern. So again, for this, I would use references. If you're doing something more tribal or depending on what you're trying to achieve, I would definitely go for, make sure I have some references so that whatever you do has a bit more, it's a bit more grounded as a design. But I think this, I'm just making this up really. Or like a Celtic sort of pattern in a way. All right, so that's it. So now I have this piece. It has some references, some quick cuts to indicate that, okay, this is a designed pattern, and that's about it. Now, in terms of other pieces, again, what I just did with this is the same thing I did for this part. So you could do the same thing. Again, look at how sketchy this is. Right? So you could do the same thing. The next thing, or the next sort of technique that I haven't shown you is this one and these bits. So for this one, what I did was just use a cylinder, and this is kind of like a primitive. So let me just show you that. That one is extremely simple. I'm gonna go to append. Actually, this is important, or not important, but it's useful. So if you have lots of subtools like I have right now, you have the option to use append or insert. They both do exactly the same action, just import or add a new object or a new tool from a different tool or new subtool. But the difference is the append will send it at the end of the layer or the subtools, and the insert will put it right below the one that you have selected. So I'm going to click on insert in this case and add a cylinder, which I have right next or right underneath the one that I had selected. And I'm going to give it a yellow color so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to scale it. And don't worry, guys, if there are some questions, I'll address them in a bit. We're still tracking well with time, so I think we're gonna have plenty of time for um, some questions that even if they're not related to what I'm showing you. All right, so this is just placing a primitive, which if you already have the idea, as in if you already have this idea as part of your design, you could have done it from the blocking stage or before, right? You can import things and add volume like that. But because this is something that I decided to do at the, like as I went through the designing process, I went like, oh, I need this, maybe some kind of like jewelry just to make it more like a chief of a tribe or something. So I added this, but it's just that, right? It's just a cylinder, and then I use the move brush or the move topological, it doesn't matter, just to adjust it slightly. So these are just tiny nudges. I don't wanna change the overall shape or the integrity of the cylinder too much, right? Especially if it is gonna be a hard piece. And I have like this like pointy section, right? And then I can go ahead and do a polish maybe. If that's too strong, maybe a smooth. I think I did, yeah, smooth. And then use dynamic subdivision, and I think that works well. And yeah, apply it. And now we have enough geometry. We can divide this even more. And we can use the Geiger cutter again. If I want to have some kind of like design in here, similar to what you know, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's just that. It's just the primitive, slightly tweaked, and there we go. Now, this one, I want to show you this one because it is an important thing. A lot of people that I know or like students of mine might think that once you have the not so much students of mine because they already know my process, so they already know what to do. But a lot of people ask me, okay, if you have already subdivision levels, that's kind of like you're ready to go. Like subdivisions are when you're starting already to add details and you are ready to then bake that subdivision, the highest one, the details of the highest subdivision into the lowest one, and you're good to go. In this case, is nothing. Is it couldn't be further than the truth. In this case, I have 4 subdivision levels. I have a cleaner topology, but if I want to, for example, have this on the other side and I try to mirror and weld it to have it on the other side, I'm going to get these notifications that you cannot do anything with subdivision levels or that you cannot duplicate it or edit the mesh if you have subdivision levels. Now, you have the option if you absolutely have to, which is using the free subdivision levels to in a way freeze the current subdivision levels and then reproject them. But in this case that I want to mirror it, it doesn't really work. So again, this is a very important thing that I want to drill into your head. It doesn't really matter. You're not worried about the topology at this point. You need to focus on creating an exciting image, a really cool concept that then you worry about the rest and the technical bits later. In fact, most of the time, I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to worry about that. I focus on designing and the concept, and for the different studios or whoever I'm working for, if the design gets approved or the concept gets approved, I get it to a much better point, a much more polished point than what I have, and then send it over. And if it has to be optimized, it has to be baked. There's someone else much more capable than I am in terms of optimizing it for a game engine or an animatic or whatever, and they do that, right? But this also I'm gonna mention it here, but we'll talk about it later. This is one of the main things of why I think as a 3D concept artist we still have a much better, like I said, an edge over AI tools because we can improve or we can accelerate the production by creating things in 3D, even if they're as a concept. I think in the near future, in the very near future, there might be tools that would AI tools that would actually generate the 3D meshes based on images. That I don't think that's a far-fetched thing to think of. I still don't know what I think about it, but I think as a concept artist, we still have that edge, and we're going to talk about that a bit later, so that we don't interrupt the flow of the workshop, because we are nearly there in terms of the cool things. So yeah, basically going back to what I was saying, this is not the final topology, so I'm just going to delete it, delete lower. right? And now I can mirror and well, and then I have a very dense, heavy topology. But it doesn't matter. It shows the details and it's there. I don't have to optimize it for anything. If I needed to, I can just run a Dynamesh to subd. I have a button here called Dyna to subd. I'll show you what this button does in a bit, or maybe I can show you now. I'm gonna run it so that you can see what it does. I'm gonna run it in solo mode and closer here so that you can see what it does. I'm gonna give me 1 second. I saw that question. Don't worry, I'll get to it. I'm gonna click on Dyna to subd. And this is a macro that I created for myself, and it just does what I'm gonna show you. It basically freezes the subdivision level, re-dynamesh it, and then projects, re-series it, project the details, and now I have a cleaner topology with subdivisions. I can even reconstruct. So I have the cleaner topology of the series measure, and I have subdivision levels with the projected details. So that's why I don't even worry about this type of things. I'll show you that in a second. Let me just show you how I did, let's say, the belt, because again, it's another very simple and sketchy way of building stuff. So these ones are just, I think I can't remember how I built these ones. Yeah, so these are Dynamesh objects as well. So let's build them in a separate piece. So I want to take a cube, make a polymesh 3D, let's rotate it. Right, so I think I use booleans actually. So something like this. And maybe scale it up like so. And then I'm just gonna duplicate that, right? And I'm gonna scale it like so. I'm gonna enable live booleans. And for you guys, it should be, if you don't know where it is, the live booleans, it's on the render palette. And render booleans, just enable live booleans and click on here. So this one will subtract whatever you have on the previous subtool. So that's what I did, kind of like define that section, and that's it. Now I can go to the bottom where it says, not the bottom, boolean, sorry, here in the subtool palette, and I'm gonna click on make boolean mesh. So that creates a new tool that I have in here. Relatively simple. You can use the zero mesh if you want a clean mesh, but I just used Dynamesh, to be honest, and it works just fine. And then you can sort of like polish it a little bit, maybe use the clay. So you see the polish kind of like bevel, not bevels, but adds this nice softer line around the edges. But then after that, once it's polished, you can also use the clay polish to just sharpen these things. So that's what I did. I like to do this process because it gives me a much more uneven surface, like much more organic. So it's not like perfect hard surface. You see, it's kind of like it's still hard surface, but it's more manufactured. Like you can see that someone actually built it, if that makes sense. Anyway, then you can use something like the gear in the Gizmo 3D and use something like the bend arc. So the bend arc is, as the name says, it just bends it towards whatever angle you push it towards, right? So now I have this belt buckle, and just to add more complexity to the one that I created, this one right here, I think what I did, I can't remember exactly, but there's many ways of doing it. This is just more of a detail thing. So I'm gonna duplicate that and rotate it like 90 degrees, and then just push it like so. And I think it was something like that. I can't remember, but you get the idea, right? Very simple. In fact, let's just merge these two together. I'm not gonna worry about like the topology. It's like 62,000. Copy and go to my working file, which is hang on. Let's wait until ZBrush. There we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and paste it. So I did copy from another tool and paste it in this tool, and now I can scale it and just use the usual. So now at this point it's very, very simple. There we go. So now I have that piece in there. So the other bit that that I want to show you is how I wrapped those things around and made it a little bit more interesting. So this sort of folds, but you'll see it's very, very simple. So this bit here, there are actually a couple of tubes that merge into this thing. That's another very simple object. But this is when the polypaint starts to play a big part, right? And this is another important thing of this step, right? Of the refining of the blocking. At this point, I will enable polypaint, right? And start defining just the blocks of color. Right now, there's no variations in color or anything like that. They're literally just selecting leather is going to be this brown. This other leather is going to be more desaturated brown, and something like this, like this belt or this fabric is going to be red. And that way, even though I have different subtools like these ones, right? The polypaint unifies it, and you can read it as, okay, this is one thing and it's wrapped around, even though it's it's just a combination of measures. So let me show you how that is done, because again, it's super easy. I'm going to turn it off. In fact, let's turn this off as well. So I'm going to use this base, right? And I have subdivision levels. So what I can do actually, if I don't want to remove the subdivision levels of this one, I can use another simple technique that I've shown many times in the past. So I'm going to insert just below. So I have this bit selected, this sort of wrap around the waist, right? I have that selected. I'm going to click on insert. So it inserts right underneath that. A cone or something, doesn't matter. I'm going to scale it down. It doesn't really matter. And now I have this mesh, this cone that I can do, add any insert brushes or anything that I want into it, right? So what I want to do is select the curved tube, right? And give me 1 second. I'll be back in, just give me 1 second, sorry. Someone's at the door. Just give me 2 seconds. All right, sorry about that. We're good. The pizza is here. No, I have my family over. They came to visit me. I got married 2 days ago. So yeah, so they came to visit me and for the party. And yeah, I have a little nephew that's running around, and they're back. All good. So where were we? So in here, in this piece, now with the curved tools, if I click and drag and do this, nothing is going to happen because I have still that one selected and I have subdivision levels. If I go to the cone, I can now do this and basically draw that. But this is doing it based on the plane that I first clicked. So it is very straight. So if you look at it from the side, it's a very straight curve. So let's undo that. And let's go to the picker. And this is probably one of, if you didn't know about this, this is probably one of the best things that would come out from this workshop. So in the curve brush, or any curve really, in the picker, you can click on depth, and you can switch between 1C, which is what I is doing right now, is picking the depth or the Z axis once, and then the rest is just like in a plane, or continuous Z, which basically is going to continuously evaluate the mesh underneath and wrap it around. So that's what I'll do. So I'm just going to do this, right? And now you see that this is following the contour, right? So that's what I want to do. I'm going to click outside just to accept that, and maybe do it again, but this time like this, and let go, and then clear the mask. This is in the cone, so let's do this. Control and Shift to isolate just that bit. To remove that cone, Control X. I have a custom shortcut. It's basically deleting hidden or delete hidden. And now I have this bit or these sections, these tubes that I can move separately using the move topological. So let's go for move topological and a curve. That's fine. And then I can start moving this. Again, I don't really mind deforming this too much because it's meant to be like some fabric. And let's bring in this thing. So this is what I did. I just like started pushing this one in. Oh, sorry, this one out. Oops. And this one in. create that sort of wrap. So there's no, you might be disappointed about like the techniques, but I wanted to do it this way because they're very simple. Like you don't have to know like all these really complex, you know, processes that or super custom brushes or whatever. The process of creating something that looks cool and that conveys your idea is actually really simple. Obviously, as you progress, you know, in and make better characters or whatever, you start to refine your own workflow, and then you can discover other things that might be better or that might be faster. But that's essentially it, right? And then obviously it doesn't look very good right now, but then you can unify it using polypaint. So I'm going to select same color just by clicking and dragging, fill object, and there we go, right? Very simple but very effective. And of course you can you know, subdivide this mesh as well and add more wrinkles to it, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's all I wanted to show on this stage. We have actually one more thing. Sorry, this strap. There's another technique in here that is really good. So let's select this one. Sorry about that. So we have this one as this is the one that we created at the beginning of the blockout, but then I want to add these details. So what I'll do is just show you how I did that in a separate subtool or a separate tool. Let's click on duplicate. Not duplicate, sorry, clone. So that creates a new tool, right? So that's basically what I have. And then you can go about this in different ways. I just want to keep it simple. So what I can do is duplicate this, right? So we have exactly the same thing as we had before. Maybe turn off dynamic, right? And I'm going to simplify this because there's a topology, a piece of topology here that doesn't look right. So I'm going to maybe not polish, maybe just do zero measure by half. That should fix it. There we go. That fixes everything. And then I'm going to use the select lasso. And the select lasso allows you to isolate edge loops. So holding Control and Shift and clicking on the edge loop. There we go. That isolates that. I'm going to hold Control and X in my case. Again, this is a custom shortcut to delete hidden, like I've showed you before. And now this is hidden. And now I can enable dynamic again, right? And then again, because I can use the inflate to push things along the normals, let's go to the inflate. Inflate. Here we go. And then just pushed out this bit like so, right? So that's how I created that other section. And let's go ahead and, you know, maybe add some segments to that to sharpen it, maybe reduce the thickness to it. And, you know, to add the patterns that I had in there. Let me go back to character. Right? Again, it's very simple pattern just to have a consistent flow in terms of the designs. I kind of like add these, you know, organic lines that could be like embedded in, or embossed into the leather that matches roughly what's in this piece. So to do that, I just like apply the dynamics of the edition and use the damp standard or something similar to add those details. Nothing fancy. So let's add a similar color, maybe a darker one, just so you can see the difference. There we go. And for the edges, so for the borders, I use the same thing, but in an inverted way. So I'll show you. So maybe we can take this one, right? And I'm going to duplicate it. This is another cool technique. So pay attention to what I'm going to do. If you do something, if you want to go back in time and use a specific piece that had a topology that you want to reuse, you can take the one that I'm going to reuse, in this case, duplicate it. So now I have a duplicate that has no history, right? And that's the one that I want to keep. But then I can go back to the previous one that has more history and then go back in time to before this point where before the point that I actually deleted this, and do the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and select the C modeler, hover over an edge, and then use the slide section and edge loop. So I'm going to slide this towards the edges like so, and like so, something like that, and then use the select lasso to hide the center instead of the borders, right? And then delete hidden. Now I can enable dynamic, and then we have a nice edge. And this is another cool thing, right? So the edge, we can use the inflate to sort of push it out a bit, right? And because this is creating this nice sort of almost like cylinder, we can apply the dynamic subdivision, and we can inflate. Now that we have applied it and it's actually thick, it's not dynamic thickness, we can inflate it. You can inflate a tiny bit if you want, and then assign a different color, right? So multiple techniques coming together, but it's really easy. We have 3 tools or 3 subtools creating this, so you can have subdivision levels on one, dynamic on the other, dynamic the subdivision on the other. Doesn't really matter. Don't worry about it, right? If I want to bring this into my working file, what I can do, a simple way is, you can copy and paste each one of the subtools, but you can click create a folder, call it strap, drop it in there, and then you can click on the gear icon and copy folder. Sorry, not from here, not in the gear icon. You have to actually use the plugin that comes with ZBrush. So the C plugin. Let's drop that in there. So C plugin, and let's open up the subtool master. And the subtool master allows you to copy the entire folder. So copy folder, and then go to the working file. Let's hide this one so that I think, yeah, that's it. And let's click on paste folder. So it's gonna paste the folder, and that's it. So that's how I generated those straps. Similar to this one as well. This one has no no science. It's the same thing. Other than that, that's basically it. The one last thing before we move into the next stage would be the necklaces. And again, that's really simple. There are multiple ways of doing the same thing. I wanna keep it super simple so that you guys can follow along and have more techniques, right? So one thing I did, let's find these ones and let's get rid of them or hide them. I already have it here. Excellent. So this one right here. So this is a cylinder, right? So I took a cylinder, I deleted the top and bottom, and just left 2 edge loops, and then just sort of like wrapped it around the head. And as you probably guessed it already, I use dynamics. Dynamics. Here we go. Dynamics on this one. So I'm gonna duplicate it so I can have that original one in there. And all I did was just recalculate so that it calculates everything that's in it, and then run simulation. And that's it. You might see that there is a bit of a gap here. So it's not actually reaching the back of the neck of this character. And that is because of the inflate slider right here. This is kind of like the distance between it's kind of like a repelling force between the volumes that you use to calculate the collision and the actual mesh. But you can change all of that. So all you have to do is, let's say 0.1, and let's recalculate. And there we go. And let me just check. Yep, all good. So yeah, so that basically does it, and doesn't look great right now, but you can enable dynamic subdivision to smooth the whole thing and add thickness as well. And we can turn off post subdivision like that. Obviously this strap is a little bit too big, but that's all right. What I can do is apply dynamic and then just polish it a little bit, like so, right? If you want something thinner, like I do have in here, you can just do the same thing. Let me just use it with this one. And this is a slightly different technique. If you don't mind to, you don't want to change the thickness of the necklace, you can use shrink or contract actually. So I want to turn off gravity. So no gravity right now. So if I click, nothing is going to happen. But if I click on contract, this one right here, ZBrush is going to take whatever you have selected, and obviously the collision volumes is going to try to shrink wrap it to it. But it's going to change obviously the volume. So if I click on run simulation, you'll see how tiny it becomes. So it has to be very, very subtle. So let's go for 0.3. And then I'm going to stop it when I think it's roughly okay. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. Now let's go for 0.2. All right. Run simulation and stop it there, right? So once I have the shrink or the thickness that I want, I can now remove it and add gravity and then run the simulation again so that we have this, right? And if you want to extend this, you can also click on allow expand and run it. And that sort of like expands the mesh. And then you can just polish by groups a little bit, maybe not that much. So you can see it's more of the same, using the same techniques over and over, but in different ways, in different contexts. Dynamic subdivision, a little bit of thickness. There we go. And then just maybe a bit more polish. Um, that's it. So that's how I created these other pieces. I think I had a cleaner tool, but it is the same. It's the same process. All right. So hopefully you guys are doing all right. Let's do a quick round of questions because we have about 15 minutes, and I want to show you the polishing pass very quickly, which is this first polishing pass. All right. Let's see the questions. Just a second. All right. All right. In the second monitor necessary is a second monitor necessary to have sufficient workflow? I think you mean like if it helps, and I think definitely like I wouldn't be able to go back to a single monitor, even when I'm on the move and I take my let's say I have a Cintiq, a Studio Pro. I have a thing called I think it's called Duet. It's an application on the iPad, and I use the iPad Pro as my second monitor so that I can move things and references in there, and it's very very handy. So yeah, I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it would speed up your workflow quite a bit instead of changing between screens. Oh, sorry, between windows. Any other question about this? Which one is better, Human Z Builder or Character Creator? I haven't played with Human Z, to be honest. Not sure. Don't have an opinion on that. Sorry. Character Creator is fantastic. It just allows you to do so many things. And it just speeds up the workflow for me as well, especially for human characters and creatures. Anything else? Any chance you can show us back of the character? Show us back to Character Creator to make the final pose. Not in this case because I already edited and changed the base mesh, so Character Creator is not gonna have that reference. And to do the edit of the rig, I think I have to. It will be outside the scope of this workshop. But like I said, there is a tutorial that I'm planning, that I'm working on, and I think that would cover all of that in depth. So just keep an eye. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, feel free to go and do so. And in the YouTube channel, you can just enable notifications. When it's ready, I'll send it out. I also, I assume if you're here already, you are part of the email list of the newsletter. So if you are, I will let you know when that tutorial is up. If you haven't been receiving my email, so if you're not part of the newsletter, you can go to the 3D Concept Artist. Thanks, Eman. 3dconceptartist.com/subscribe, and then you subscribe there, and you can get notified as soon as we have new tips, new tutorials, or new deals. Which brings me to one important thing that I want to do before move on into the finished one. I have a bit of a surprise for you guys and for those who are here in this live stream. I know I've been talking for about an hour, almost 2 hours. So thank you so much for bearing with me, and hopefully what I've been showing you is been useful and of help. But as a way to reward you in a way to be here. I know some of you guys, some of the students are in here, but the Extra Mile course, which is the biggest course I have online, which is more like a community of building awesome stuff, is going to open. The last time of this year is going to open in a couple of days. So in 2 days, we're going to open up the Extra Mile for a very short period of time. And the idea is because I have started working on a massive update that I want to do to the course. So I want to introduce a bunch of new workflows, improve on a whole bunch of other stuff that we have, improve the quality of audio, video, a bunch of other things. So we're going to have essentially a brand new Extra Mile, right? And we're already working towards that, and that's coming next year. So what I want to do is offer everyone that's been very kind to follow me and follow my journey as well, a chance to join the Extra Mile at the same price that I've been having for the past 3 or 4 years. And then if you join this time, you have the access straight away to the current version of the Extra Mile, which is still pretty powerful and very relevant. It has basically what I've been showing you in a much more succinct way, or like with more clear steps and modules, and obviously a bunch of other tools. But then once we have the update to the Extra Mile next year, you will have access to that entire course. So you have the update will be absolutely free for whoever is going to be, or whoever is in the extra mile. Obviously, if you're already in the extra mile, you get it for free anyway. As I've been saying, once you join, you're part of us in a way. So yeah, this is an exciting thing that I want to just let you guys know. Is going to open in a couple of days. So make sure that you are subscribed into that link that Eman shared, so that you get notifications of when it opens. But it opens on the 2nd of December, my time. So it's the 30th now. So tomorrow I will send a reminder for anyone that wasn't here, and on the 2nd I will open up the doors of the extra mile. And yeah, I would love to have you on board. So anyone that is interested, feel free to subscribe if you haven't. I'm not gonna make a big fuss about it on social media. This is mostly for people that have been in my email list and supporting me for so long. I want to give them that opportunity to kind of like lock in the price of this extra mile, so that when the new one comes in, they can be part of it for free. Anyway, let's go back to what I was saying because we now are getting closer to the nice final kind of like concept that I would share and talk about a bit the AI tools. All right. Let's have a look. All right. So the difference here is that I started playing around a little bit more with some patterns in Polypaint. So the body, right? I started like, drawing with a different, or like painting with a different, slightly different color. Some patterns. I don't know. I wanted to do some kind of like a tribal pattern, I guess. Make it like a bit more interesting rather than the plain color. The hair, of course, I'll show you that. I know you guys like, creating these type of things, so I'm going to show you that. Other than that, I think that's the main thing, the main difference. And obviously, I polish things a little bit more in this stage. And this one right here, right? So I just duplicated this, but you'll see this is still, if I enable polyframe, it's just a plane, right? And then I have enough subdivision levels to sort of paint and draw this, I would say kind of like gold incrustations or something like that. Very simple, right? It just conveys the idea. So for the hair, which is kind of like the main difference from the previous one, what I did was imported a sphere and I just sort of shape it. So the hair is actually comprised of a few pieces. Let's select that one. So this is the main piece, right? Which is just a sphere and Dynamesh. Maybe turn off Polypaint so I can see it better. Right? And then I have some cubes that I added just to add more, more of an interesting pattern. But this is just Dynamesh, right? Then I added these bits, right? And let me turn off a notification, and I have all good. So I have this bit, right? And this bit allows you to, not allows you to. It's just another section, another part of the hair. So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm gonna append. Let's turn it off and show you what I did with that. Okay, this is it's good to show you this. This is a failed attempt because I thought, oh, maybe, like I said, it looked like the right shoulder was a little bit, too empty, and I wanted to do something else. So I try to, I wrapped a piece of clothing here that I was going to add, but I thought, it's a little bit too cliche. Let's just go for something different, and that's why I ended up doing the other protective pad that I'm going to show you in a second. Anyway, so for the hair, let's go ahead and append a sphere. Let's move that up. Let's scale that down. And I'm going to put it around there. All right. So for this, I use symmetry as well. And I'm going to start with the move brush really quickly just to give it the basic shape. Obviously, this is going to be totally depending on the project that you're working on. But I just want to show you the kind of like the speed, the technique, obviously, but the speed at which you can just work with these things. I'm going to Dynamesh it now, maybe slightly large resolution. And the idea with this step is just focusing on adding the volume, because it's one of the volumes that we didn't have during the volume stage, or that volume step. So it's just a matter of setting that up, and then you can concentrate on adding details or whatever else you want to do. or refining a bit further. All right, so I'm gonna increase the dynamic resolution a bit, maybe a bit more than that. Right, and I'm gonna use a set of brushes that are available, and those brushes are free in the ZBrush Guide store. So let's go to brushes, and those ones are here. So they're just some brushes that are free in the ZBrush Guides the store, or you can get it from the ZBrush Guides as well. So I'm gonna use this long hair, and it's just maybe we need more resolution than this. Let's polish it, and yeah, this is basically what you get. So you can do these things a lot easier. So you see, I use a lot of the basic brushes, but when it comes to these type of things, when I just want to test things out, these sort of brushes speed up the process so much. So yeah, you can use these ones like so. Now we have rough hair, right? And then obviously we can give it a darker color so that we can play with the poly paint, and that way we can sort of see the contrast. That's really all there is to it. Now, if you wanna, there's like some weird spikes in here. See what this is. I don't know what this one is coming from. It doesn't matter. It's not part of what I need to show you anyway. So the plat kind of thing, I'm going to show you a very simple technique. So I'm going to append a sphere, right? In fact, let's just scale this down. I'll do it here. Let's do it on this side. All right. So we have this sphere that I'm going to use for like creating that sort of woven pattern, or like that plat. So for that, I'm going to scale it in maybe this axis, and let's scale it down a bit like so. And I'm going to click on the gear icon, go to the bend arc. Not sorry, the bend curve. That one. And I'm going to increase the number of points to 5 maybe. And I'm going to take one of these points and push it down, on the other one up, and then just sort of like adjust it to create kind of like an S shape in a way. And we can scale it, if anything, a little bit. All right, accept, and maybe scale it down a bit. All right, and then the next thing is, this is going to be one of the sections, kind of like a subtle S shape in a way. I'm going to duplicate that. So from the subtool palette, duplicate that, and I'm going to mirror it. So I'm going to mirror it. It's on the other side. Let's bring it closer. So, and then I'm going to merge them together. So I'm going to hold Control E. That's a shortcut that I have. Just remember, it reminds me, sorry, from the Control E, which is merging layers in Photoshop. So I just assign the same sort of Control E, but it's under the merge. So merge down. Okay, there we go. And then I can center to this piece, maybe scale this like so. And here is one of the tricks. You can hold the Control key and duplicate, right? That's one of the tricks. The better trick is that you can hold Control to determine kind of like the distance. So I'm just going to push this one or place it around there. And then without letting go of the click, still can move it around. I'm going to let go of Control and then go up. So it's going to duplicate based on that distance, which is pretty cool. Clear the mask. Center this. Maybe we just scale this like so a little bit. And maybe we can give it a bit of an arcing shape from the top. So just a tiny bit. All right, so we have this bit. Now let's put it in context. Around there, roughly. And we click on the gear icon, bend curve again, and now we can place, give it a bit of shape just so that it feels more organic. but that's about it. Like it's if you were expecting something like super clever, really complex, sorry to disappoint. This is actually the simpler, the better. Actually, I think. Anyway, so let's give it the same color again to so that it feels part of the same thing, even though they're like completely separate subtools. And if you want, you can just obviously mirror and weld and adjust this slightly different. So you have more of a symmetry. That's it. Kind of looks like the name Harold the Great. The um, I forgot the name. The the big franchise game with there's a series now with Henry Cavill. I forgot the name. Anyway, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, that's really all there is to it, right? A little bit more polishing with every stage. I try to go across all the subtools and polish them a little bit more so that I can move the entire character forward, right? Let's go to the polish and adjust step before a couple more things, and here we go. So this step is where I added already the horns. So the main things that I added are the horns, these sort of patch here for the arm. Obviously, again, so that it makes sense, I connected this with another leather strap underneath, following the same techniques. Actually, this one is different. I'll show you something else. I started adding these, these bolts and these things, these nuts and bolts, just with IMM brushes. So, the standard IMM brush, and that's the same thing that I did for this. So there probably are clever ways of doing this if you want to spend the time and get something super sharp and clean and consistent everywhere. But again, for this stage, is not necessary. Like you kind of, I'm pretty sure you can understand what that shoulder means or what that shoulder piece means, right? And that's what I want. I don't want to be able to spend half a day working on that piece by itself, making sure that it's perfect, and at the end I get this, I don't get this approved and said, maybe let's go for a full armor. Let's not do that leather piece. But at this stage, you can see that there are some pins that are probably metallic, or some sort of like pin in between the padding area, and it's very likely to be leather. It kind of looks like leather, same colors, and it's like cushy, so it's a protective thing. That's all I'm interested in showing, that it can work like that. That it can work like that. All right, so I'm going to show you how I did that. I'm also going to show you the horns. The horns, I'm going to be very quick with those because there is actually a tutorial in my YouTube channel that I released recently that covers 4 different ways of doing horns. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I just basically add them, and in the body or in the face, I sort of adjusted it so that it sort of compensates for holding such big horns. Other than that, the rest is a bit more of the same, just polishing. I added these things here on the boot as well, and those are like simple pieces that I duplicated and arranged manually, nothing more. Again, you can do things a bit faster and clever if you do this constantly. If you do a character that has this type of details, let me turn this off so you can see it better. If your character has this type of details and it's something that you're recurring, you use constantly, or that you record to a lot, what you can do is create a brush that has this as an insert brush or a curve, so you can just draw a curve and add them. Again, that's you modifying or improving on your own workflows. So anyway, let's go to this guy, or let's work on this guy. All right. So this is obviously a separate subtool, and the way that it works, so that I can show you better, I'm gonna take my body. Actually, let's just hide it, and I'll do it in here. And let's hide these bits and pieces. And let's leave this one. Okay. So I'm going to take this body, right? And I'm going to duplicate it. I'm just going to use that bit that I need for that arm. So duplicate it, delete, lower, doesn't matter. So now I have a perfect duplicate. I'm going to use the select lasso, and I'm going to cut it from here. And I think it's somewhere like around there, right? So now I have this bit, and maybe let's hide this a bit better. don't have, it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to keep it cleaner, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna leave it like that. Delete hidden, right? So I just delete those other parts of the body. I'm gonna give it a color already so that you know which one I'm using or when I'm showing you, so that it doesn't, right now it's coplanar with the body. All right, so again, using the same technique, I'm just gonna reuse things that I showed you at the beginning. I'm gonna go ahead and polish by groups. This might take a little bit longer just because it has more resolution. Yeah, more subdivisions. Let's set a target polygon count of 2000 and zero mesh that. All right, shouldn't take that long. There we go. So now I have a cleaner set of polygons. I'm going to polish by groups again, polish by groups, polish by groups, and then zero measure again. Polish by groups, polish by groups. And that's it. Now we can go ahead and inflate things, or I don't really need to inflate anything because this is close to the body. Instead, I'm just going to use dynamic, add thickness, and then dynamically find the thickness that I need. I'm going to turn off subdivision, maybe a little bit more of thickness actually. There we go. And I'm going to click on apply. Done. So I have the volume, right? So I went back in, let's say, in steps to get something or get the volume and the blocking of something that I needed extra for the design, but follow the same steps, right? Now that I have this, I can clean this a little bit with the smooth brush. So it doesn't look like that horrible. But that's it. Right, so how did I create that sort of pattern? Before I go to that, I actually did the adjustment, right? So remember, after having the volumes and the blockout, then there is a step which is just adjusting things. So that's what I'm doing right now, using the move brush to push things in so that it makes sense, right? Maybe with the hair as well, something like that. Right, cool. So the next thing would be adding those panels or like sort of like quilt effect. Now, again, sorry to disappoint you. There's no like a clever way of doing it. It's just a very quick manual thing. You go through it. If it works, then you spend the time doing it more properly if you want. Because you could do this with, if you create a very nice set of meshes or like a base mesh, you can use nano mesh and you can use all sorts of clever things. But I'm gonna keep it simple. Right, so I'm gonna use the Geiger cutter. And then I'm gonna set my guideline. So I'm gonna do like this. Oops, let's go. Yep, backface masking is enabled. And I'm gonna continue with this all the way through. All right, that's it. That's my guideline. And now I can try to maintain a parallel line around that one. I'm not gonna do the whole thing, just wanna give you the basics of it. This is like, I'm just eyeballing it. Right? Don't worry about like these bits and pieces. We'll fix it in a second. This doesn't really matter. Right? So I have that, and now I'll do the opposite. So another sort of guideline going across. Depending on how inclined you made it, like, can be from, like the pattern could be more like rhombs, what's the name? Rectangular pieces, or rhomboids, or squares. So I have another line that is my guideline. I'm gonna try to keep it parallel doing this. All right. That's exactly what I did. I just did manual lines. Again, you could be like, there are other ways of doing it, and I use other ways. So, for example, you could just cut this with a slice curve and do polygroups and then do panel loops. That's one way of doing it if you want to do cleaner. But this way, I can assure you, you can just spend like half the time or less than half, a quarter of the time, just doing it like this to make sure that it works. And then let's finish it up here so you can see. If I want to polish this a little bit, what I can do is just do a bit of polish, or maybe inflate. Yeah, let's do inflate. a little bit. And then let's use the smooth brush, sorry, the smooth slider. Like so. And then you can go with a little bit more care, maybe with more subdivision. If you need it, just hit that subdivide. Don't worry about it. Just use it. It's there for it. Like, you need more resolution, just go for it. And then, yeah, I'll just start doing this sort of thing, refining it bit by bit. And of course, then you can use the standard brush. So I'm going to go for standard. I'm going to reset it. And then just add a bit of thick folds. That obviously depends on the type of material you're trying to achieve. But that's essentially it. And for the little pieces, obviously, this looks a little bit far from what I actually have, which is this. But you'll see it's essentially the same thing. Like, there's no difference if I turn off poly paint. It is the same thing. It's just that I inflated things at the end, so it just. But look, it's not perfect. I want you to look at the errors. I want you to look at that. It's not perfect. You don't have to worry about making things absolutely perfect all the time. If it works and if it's of quality and it's going to be approved, then you can spend the time fixing it. I'm not gonna send this over for production, right? I just want to get this concept approved, and then I can work on something cleaner, right? And that is the idea. So that's basically it. Oh no, sorry. ZBrush. Sorry, I thought it crashed. That's basically it. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, now that I show you kind of like the basics of this, the setup, are the AI tools. So let me bring in kind of like the final, because there's a couple more steps that I want to show you, and then we'll talk about that. So surface details is very, very different. Sorry, very, very, very similar to what I had. I'm gonna I'm going to turn off poly paint, take a screenshot here, and then move this one here. All right, left is the one that we just had before, like the previous, like the polishing and adjusting. The one on the right-hand side is the next step, but you'll see is barely, there's barely any difference. The main difference on this step is that I started worrying about worrying a bit more about the surface quality of the different pieces, right? So what's leather, what's metal, what's fabric, what's organic matter, what's the skin, all of that, and try to add a bit of like surfacing to it, okay? And for that, again, you can use some of the brushes. I have some brushes for that. I'll show you in a second, but I'll show you the easiest one first. So for the skin, right, you see, like I have these bumps. I mean, it is too much. It's not like proper, pores, and it's not in the right place. It's just a generic noise, but it adds that sort of quality that I need for the render, right? So and the way that I did that is just by going to the surface tab and enable noise. So I click on noise. I'm gonna edit noise, and you'll see the noise is basically this. So I have the scale of that noise. I have the strength change a bit, and then I have a bit of a color blend with a yellowish, slightly orange tone that goes really well. It mixes really well with the poly paint that I did as a base, which is the blue one. So if I turn off this noise, you see it's very blue, like it's very saturated. And adding a little bit of these orange tones is kind of like blended, but it's very subtle, right? Even though it's this very sketchy thing, hopefully you can see, like, even the anatomy, you can see the, the strokes of the clay builder brush. I haven't polished any of that, right? And most of the time is because it's not even visible. But in the final one, I did polish it a little bit. Anyway, I just want to show you that this stage is just to add noise, add those surface details. Now, for the pants, that looks kind of cool, right? This is something that also comes with ZBrush and is part of the noisemaker. So in the noisemaker, if you open the surface tab and you click on Lightbox Noisemaker, you will see there's a bunch of noises that you can just double click and add to your mesh. So if I double click, let's go for this one, which is kind of like a wood noise. It's very strong, but this is what I get. I think I use this one, noise 0, yeah, noise 07. So you double click on that one, it gives you this, right? And you can edit that. So you can click on edit, and this is the alpha that is using. So I'm going to reduce the alpha, the scale of the alpha, right? So, and all of this is in ZBrush already. Like if you haven't used it, go ahead and open it and use it. It's there. All right, so that's the alpha, and maybe it is a little bit too strong, so I can reduce the strength tiny bit, and I can play with a different color. So maybe I want the gray color to blend with more of a bluish tone. Click OK, and you'll see now we have this surface. Again, very subtle, but when you when you bring everything with the polypaint and everything else, those are the little details that give you kind of like visual anchor points of what materials or what type of materials you're using. So in this case, this one right here, I use like a rock pattern, like a crack rock pattern, but it's just to indicate that there's like an old leather that is already like hardened up and it's like cracked in a bit, in some bits and pieces. So if you click on Lightbox, I think the one that I use for that leather, I use all of the default ones. I just wanted to show you things that you can use with ZBrush. I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of these ones. This one, noise 05. Yeah, so noise 05. Let's go ahead and edit that because it's like very strong. Let's change the scale. There we go, and the strength as well. And I don't want to have any color blend. So you'll see it's not tiling perfect. Again, it doesn't really matter. It just shows the idea. If you are worried about this, that an art director is going to tell you, oh, this is not tiling perfectly for a concept, I can guarantee you that that's not going to be the case, because a good art director understands where things are going and understand that this is a step in the process, and it will tell you, this is looking great, let's go ahead and move on with this, we like it, let's polish it, and then you figure out a way to make a tile and to make the noise work properly and refine it. But don't worry about, like, when you're trying to get an idea or get to a point, don't worry about these technicalities. And I know that I might get a lot of hate comments to this, because some people might say work it's better to work in a clean way all the way through, and that I'm absolutely for that if you're working in production. But as a concept artist, and this is the point, right? This is a 3D concept artist workshop, and this is what I do, 3D concept, and that's my website, 3D concept artist. As concepts, that's what our job as artists are, I think, like communicating an idea. You get the idea, you get that this is leather, you get that this is a creature, you get that it has these intricate patterns that refer to ancient Babylonian or whatever. You get it, great. Now let's make it into the production. Let's take that and make that a nice asset. And that brings me to let's finish this, but that brings me to the AI stuff. That's the last thing that I wanted to show you in terms of the of these tools. Everything else is just, adding noise bits and pieces, this noise as well in here. Let me show you on the horns, actually, something that you can do. Again, all of these brushes, Eman will show you, again, if you weren't here, just the brushes that you can find in this store. But if I go to the brush section, I'm going to use the rocks. There's one that I use all the time, which is this Cliff bundle. And again, all of these packs are in the ZBrush Guide store, but you'll see how quick this is. So if I want to add details just to enhance the look and feel of this, especially for render, to catch the light and all of that, I'll just do this, right? And that creates this sort of like really rough, organic horn, which is pretty cool. And yep. So Eman, if you want to share the link for those who were not here, you can. Yep, thank you. That's in there. So I can use the trim dynamic now, and then trim things a little bit. But again, I just want to show you that it is very, very simple. And you'll see that I didn't have 6 subdivision levels to get that. I was like in 4, right, or something like that, or 3. If I needed more to describe this, then that's what I did, right? So that's the kind of like before last step, to add like focusing on qualities of the material, like what's organic matter, what's hard surface damage, that sort of thing. That's what I would concentrate. And then we get to the final polish pass, which is not that far from this, right? The final polish pass, everything is slightly more polished. The skin is more polished. So for example, I went, it's still very sketchy in some areas, like you don't see this, but why polish it right now if things might not go our way, right? And it's covered by this. Anyway, so you'll see the pattern. I just went with the damp standard brush and I sort of cut through this to create a similar sort of like relief on the body. Again, it's not like super defined, right? I have already 3 million polygons. If I want, I can use more, but this is not going to be a close-up. I'm not going to send to my art director, whatever it is, I'm not going to send a close-up to this for him to inspect how clean the lines here, the lines are. I might send a close-up like this to just to show the pattern, right? To understand, because this might change quite a bit, right? So I might even use that in a layer, and then the art director said like, this is too organic, too curvy. Let's go for more like strained Mayan lines type of thing, and then I can just change it. But that way, I don't have to spend a lot of time working on something that is not going to get approved. At this stage, it does the job, it works as a concept, and I think it works well. So this is the final sort of concept that I would send for approval, and if it works, then I have some bits and pieces that are almost ready, and I can go ahead and basically, polish using the zero measure and all of that to get it going. All right, so let's go ahead and go back in here. All good. So I'm going to show you the references and the things that I created using AI tools like Midjourney for this character, and why I think we still have a bit of an advantage, and where I think are my worries, and what we need to do kind of like to police ourselves when we use AI tools and that sort of thing. Before I jump into that last bit of the workshop, because we are already like 20 minutes past the workshop, but I tend to do this and talk a lot about other stuff. Let me know, guys, if there are any questions about this. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those, and then we jump into the AI. How long did it take you to scope the whole project? I did this concept in a day. So basically, what I show you today in 2 hours and a half, you can spread that in a day and get the same result, but a bit more polished. And that is because, again, I'm not worried about making things perfect. If I were to already do this for production and I'm already worrying about topology, it might take a lot longer, right? But as a first concept, that's why I do it this way, right? And this is just to show, like, for an art director, if someone asks me, we want this hornet fantasy creature that is like a blue skin Viking. That's how I did the Midjourney, by the way. Blue skin character. We want that, and we want to see some variations, right? So I would get it to this stage, and if the main feature of what people are asking, of the studio asking, is maybe how the horns are going to be, I already have this base as my base concept, and I can very quickly go ahead and select my horns, go to the lowest subdivision level, and say, let's go for something a little bit more crazy. These are going to be the actual horns, and that could be a whole new character, or like a whole new concept that I can send. Maybe switch these ones. Maybe I only want one, right? So that's one. Right, so let's do screenshot there, and then back to this one. There we go. Right, so I have this base, and then you have these two characters that are the same concept, but they're slightly different. So once I get to that point, I can generate 10, 20 of these. Maybe one of these ones, let's do another one, and this one right here in the center, or in here, this might have different type of horns. I don't know, I'm just doing this very quickly just to show you, but maybe it doesn't have this piece, and maybe this is like is already getting too much in terms of the leather. I don't know. I'm just kind of like thinking it here, right? But I do have the base. So and if I don't like, maybe as another concept, I can take this guy. Let's just leave it there. There's another one here, and I can go to the body, right? Select the body. I can go to adjust color and say, you know what? Let's try something more like a green color. Maybe that, even though it's outside of the brief, sometimes that's might be interesting to see. Let's click OK. So now you have this more like Warcraft type of thing. But you have the base. So you might spend a day doing this concept, this very quick thing that looks good, that is still very sketchy, it's very, very important that I want to drill this into your head. This is a very sketchy thing that you can do in one day, but it looks good. There's quality in it. And there's a lot of things that you can take from it. So if you have this thing, you can produce a bunch of other characters or a bunch of other concepts. And let's say if I send a spreadsheet of characters of 20 like this, like at this stage, at this level of polish, and the art director says, I love the horns of number 3, but I want to go with the skin of number 1, and I do really want to have that shoulder. So I can take that reference, that feedback, and then I can combine it into the, let's say, final concept, send it, and said, yep, let's go for that, but let's actually make the pants leather instead of fabric. No worries, let's do that. And that's how you start like polishing things. And then at the end, it's like, okay, this is good, approved, ready to go. Go ahead and polish. Now I can spend a week or whatever it takes to make sure all the pieces fit into place and they're all consistent and nicely. All right, so hopefully that answers the question. It's a bit long-winded answer, but what I wanted to show you is the tools that I use and the reference that I use for this character in AI. So let me get back in here. This is another reference I had for you guys. Let me bring it. So this is kind of like the steps. If you want to sort of go back in time a little bit as a quick wrap up, we have the first one, which is the base. Then we have the pieces. So this is when, I don't know if you can see, but when we started cutting up the pieces, that's, pretty simple. Then we have the volumes. So this is when we started adding volume to the pieces. Then we started blocking out those pieces. And then we started adjusting the block out so that, with polypaint and everything, we can already get a very good idea of how this character is going to look like, even though it changed over time a bit. And then that's why I separated them in 2 rows. The first one is where most of the changes are going to happen. That's kind of like where you're going to see most progress on your project. When you get to this stage, you start to focus more on how everything fits together. And that's why as you progress, even though there are changes, they're more subtle. So there's not changing the silhouette, or there's not changing a lot of things, even though from here and here you can see a big difference. But all of these ones are the latest steps that I show you, right? And they're just about polishing. Anyway, so here are some amazing things that I created with Midjourney. I think they're pretty impressive. And you can generate way better things than this. This was just like very quick thing. So why I wanted to talk about this is because as concept artists, a lot of the fear right now, I think, in the industry and artists that I know are saying Midjourney and tools like Midjourney and AI are going to take over and replace us, right? And I think it is not. It is a realistic thing or a realistic idea that it might happen, right? But it not might happen the way that people think. And I don't have any answers. I only have questions, and I can share them with you. But I don't have any answers. And the only thing that I'm sure of is that anyone that assure you anything, it won't be that way. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. The only thing that I can say is that I feel comfortable in the specific niche that I'm in a 3D concept artist world, because this is great. And you can see, just to show you the prompts that I use for Midjourney. If I show you the screen here on the characters, the prompts that I use for these characters are, I think I went for like blue skin Viking chief or something. That's what I wanted to create for the character, right? And you see, these are all Midjourney, like pretty impressive stuff. So you have like the blue skin. In this case, it's a bit more stylized. So if you are a 2D artist, trying to create this type of stuff, you know, you might be in trouble as to, you know, someone might just click a couple of prompts and generate this already. But you know, I wouldn't be too worried. I mean, I'm gonna show you. This one is pretty impressive, even though, you know, the hand is not there. But as a concept as well, I think it works. It works well, but it's not necessarily what I wanted. Okay. So what I'm using the AI tools for is to generate ideas, produce a series of concepts, and I actually try to create. I try to use Midjourney as a generated tool. For those of you who don't know, is the Discord bot that generates images based on prompts, on prompts, on just text. And these are from there. I have no input on this. I just like type Viking blue something, and it just gave me this, right? And then you can scale and improve, you know, pretty impressive things, right? I didn't even specify a style, which you can do. You can go how to train your dragon style or something like that. But I'm trying to avoid, when I'm using Midjourney, to specify styles. Just want to see what I get. So I try to actually do this in a professional project, right? With the consent of the person that I was doing the work for. Just try to generate Midjourney's images for the concept. And it was very hard to get to the thing that the person wanted and the thing that I wanted to show. So that's what I actually went through the process and said, I did, I think you pay like $10 a month for how many images you can generate with Midjourney. I spent all of them in the first 3 hours. So I spent the whole month of images in 3 hours, just trying to find the things that I needed, right? And it was very hard to get to the specific thing that the person wanted, even though there were really cool stuff, really cool ideas. It was really hard to get to that point. And as well, the thing that I wanted to show the client, right? So that kind of like reassured me that we still are very relevant. And based on that, what I took from it is that one of the main things, there are like two big things that I think we still have an edge over the AI. The first one is that a machine, for like, it doesn't matter how intelligent it becomes and how incredibly powerful the algorithms to producing these images become, they have no context. And I think context is king. It's like the same thing, like if you overheard a conversation, you passing by, to someone saying something, and you go like, "Whoa, what was that?" Right? You have no context. You have no idea what's happening in there. There's the same thing with the machine, and that's my belief. Like, there's no context, whereas us, we have the context. We can decide things. We can fine tune it, right? And the second thing is that as 3D concept artists, we are taking, and that's essentially what I teach in the 3D, in the extra mile that I mentioned, right? The extra mile course, that you can take an idea, a concept, just like this one. Where are we? This guy, right? And by the way, let me just bring this closer so that you can see how far I actually am, well, in a way, from the idea, right? So this was the generated thing, pretty powerful stuff, but this is what I wanted to do. And I can guarantee you, if I show this to a client after I render it, of course, they're going to go for this. And I'm confident of that, because not only I would be try to cheat if I said this is the concept, if I don't say that it's generated by AI, right? I think I feel I'm cheating. So I would definitely say this is AI. And I think there is also an empathy level, or another layer of comfort, knowing that this came from an artist. Regardless, I mean, an artist can still steal from other people. And I kind of like, we all do it at some level, right? We're not reinventing the wheel, but it could be that someone is plagiarizing someone that you don't know, and you can still get it. But with AI, you have no idea. So I think there's another layer of comfort in there. But what I was saying, going back to what I was saying, as a 3D concept artist, I think we have that extra more practical edge, or more practical advantage, where we can say, all right, I like this guy. Can I have a look at how this looks posed, or maybe on a 3D angle? And I can just go, no problem. Let's use the green one, right? Or yeah, let's go back here. It's no problem. Let's do a close up here, right? And send it. It's going to be exactly the same character, but because we created a concept in 3D, we have the ability to send it over as a screenshot. So let's just do that, right? I think there's value. I know that this might be like, pretty obvious for some of you guys, but there is value in this. There's a lot of value in in this, which at the moment it might not be as easy for a machine or an AI to produce, right? I know that a Wally Wally, no, sorry, Dolly, sorry, Dolly allows you to edit things. So at this stage, and it's only going to get better at a very, very fast pace. Okay. So this is another thing, right? In Dolly, you can take this guy and say, remove the beard and just make it like, shaved. And it maintain the rest of the things. And it's just going to change that. So as an editorial kind of like stages or process for a art director, it's going to be very powerful. But it is very hard to maintain the same shape, the same volume, the same stuff, or the same character, and just go for different, you know, just just make it a 3D. Like I said, there might be something coming in the near future, but I still think that as 3D concept artists, we have that. And not only that, we have the context and we have the ability to know in advance what's coming next. So I know that this is just a concept that, Midjourney might as well generate something very similar. Um, but I know that this is going to be a concept that is going to be used in a video game or something. So I have the context. So I know that I can start fixing things or changing things towards that, and I can save a ton of time in production, rather than just giving them. So practically what I mean by that is if I take this as my concept and send it over and I said I did that, or well, I did it, but with AI, and I send that, there's still going to be someone that has to figure out things, like, maybe the side view or the front view or how things look like, close-up view. Someone that has to model it and sculpt it, all of that. Whereas as to the concept artists, we're doing that already. So as we do the concept, we create the character, we create our idea, we already have that initial. Oh, sorry, guys. I think there was like a connection issue right at the end of the stream when I was giving you my final thoughts. Anyway, that was pretty much it. I think that as 3D concept artists, we have that advantage, and I think that's what, as a focus point, that's what the 3D, like the extra mile course, focuses on. So we don't only have the context, we have our input, our knowledge and all of that to put into it, and we also practically we can save a lot of time in the production because we work as concept artists, we work with concept but already in 3D. So that's one of the, I think, big advantages that we have, even though I think AI generated stuff are just going to get better and better and better and better and faster, and at some point we might become obsolete, but not just us, anyone. And in the greatest scheme of things, it might be a good thing for everyone else. We just need to soften the blow of the transition period between this point and when everything is automated, not just us. But for now, I think we are in a strong. We still have a strong position. That's what I wanted to show. And hopefully, guys, this has been of help. This is a workshop that I put together relatively quickly, but I wanted to show you this. And again, just before I wrap up, just before I end up this in the stream, remember that the extra mile is going to be open. And give me 1 second. I'm sorry. um, the extra mile, you can start joining the extra mile on the 2nd of December. It's going to be very, very limited until I think it's on the 6th of December or the 5th of December. And remember, if you want to join, the idea is that we're working on the new extra mile, where I'm going to improve a lot of the workflows and all of the things. Is basically a much more in-depth version of what I show you, but I also cover what I show you today in this workshop, but it also covers texturing and rendering, all sorts of different renders, polishing, presenting, composition, all of that, right? That is the extra mile. And if you kind of like lock it in, as in join this last time of the year that I'm going to open it, is going to stay. We're going to keep the same price that I've had for the past 3 years. And then when the new version comes in next year, once we finish with all the content, then in next year, you will get all that for free for being part of the extra mile. So please keep an eye on your emails. Tomorrow, I'm going to send you a reminder. And on the 2nd of December, when we officially have opened it for everyone, you'll receive an invitation as well. So hopefully this has been of help. Even if you don't end up joining at the extra mile, doesn't matter. I really hope that this has been instructional in a way, and that you can take something out of it. And feel free to share your characters and your stuff with me on social media. I would love to see them. But yeah, I'm going to leave it here, and hopefully you have enjoyed this workshop, and I'll see you in the extra mile. Cheers, guys.